Today we're going to field strip, disassemble, clean, lubricate, and reassemble a Taurus PT-99 AF. Alright, first thing as usual, we want to remove the magazine, make sure this gun is unloaded. Lock the slide to the rear, verify there is no round in the chamber and no magazine in the firearm. Close the slide, and then we want to decock the hammer. This particular PT-99 does not have the decocker function on the safety, so the only way to safely decock the hammer is the old-fashioned way. Hold it back with your thumb, press the trigger, and then allow the hammer to come home slowly. So now, in order to remove the slide from the PT-99 AF, there is a button on this side right here. You want to press on this button and hold it in. When you press on the button, it lifts this pin, which then clears the way so you can rotate the takedown lever right here, and that'll release the slide. You can let go of the button after that. Pull the slide right off the front, and now compress the recoil spring and guide rod toward the front, lift it up. This comes out with a little bit of spring pressure, so just be careful there. Make sure you're wearing your eye protection. All right, now the barrel is kind of locked in place until you press this button right here. If you press this button, it lifts up this middle part, which unlocks the barrel, and then you can lift it up and out of the slide like that. And now there's one last piece. This middle piece here comes out, makes it easier to clean. All right, to get this piece out, you just make sure that this pin is all the way out. Hold it out with one hand. This has to be lifted up as high as it goes. And as you're holding it up, just kind of slide it off to the side. And this side has to come out first. So you just kind of pull that out, and this will come off just like that. All right, and that is as far apart as you need to disassemble the Taurus PT-99 for cleaning purposes. All right, real quick, I'm going to go through the cleaning supplies that I use to clean my guns. We're going to start with eye protection, nitrile gloves. You need some kind of a lubricant. I use original gun oil. This is a CLP. A CLP stands for Cleaner Lubricant Protectant. There's all kinds of CLPs out there. Any good brand CLP will work. I use Hops number 9 for a solvent. You can clean a gun with just a good CLP. You can use that to clean the gun if it's not too dirty. If it's real dirty, like I think the one we have today, I'm going to use a solvent. It works a little bit better, especially inside the barrel. I like to keep my solvent in a dispenser. This is a pump dispenser. It keeps the solvent from getting contaminated because you just pump up the amount you need by pressing down on this. Then you have a little tray of solvent to use. I also like to have pipe cleaners on hand for getting in really tight spaces. You're going to need some kind of a cleaning brush. This is actually a dog toothbrush. It's got a big end and a smaller end. Very handy for cleaning guns, although you can get an actual gun cleaning brush as well. You're going to need some cotton swabs. These are my favorite. They have a pointy end and a regular end. The pointy end is perfect for cleaning the slide cuts inside the slide. You're going to need some kind of a rod to get inside the barrel. Any gun cleaning kit is going to come with some kind of a rod. You'll see how we use this in the video. You need a loop to hold the patches to push through the barrel, and then some kind of a bore cleaning brush. This is made for 9mm, and the patches you're going to be pushing through are 2" by 2" patches. That is the appropriate size for 9mm or 380 or 38 or 357, and then some cut up rags. This is just literally a t-shirt I just cut up 5 minutes ago, and that's pretty much all you need. There's a few shortcuts I'm going to show you. A Boresnake is a huge time saver and mess saver for cleaning the inside of your barrel. I'll show you how to use that. If you don't have these nice long cotton swabs, you can certainly use your drugstore cotton swabs that you have in the bathroom. They're not as convenient as the longer, stronger wooden ones. And if you don't have a fancy gun brush, any old toothbrush is going to work just as well, except there might be some tight spaces you won't be able to get into with a bigger toothbrush. All right, now that we have the Taurus PT-99 apart, we just have to clean up each of the parts, and then we're going to lubricate it and put it back together. So I like to start with the barrel. All right, here's a quick look down inside the barrel. You can kind of see the crud buildup inside the barrel here, and right here around the outside is some carbon buildup, and we're going to get all that cleaned up, as well as the outside of the barrel. So there's a couple ways to clean the barrel. First, I'm going to show you the standard way using solvent, and then I'll show you the shortcut if your barrel isn't super dirty. So the first thing we want to do is get our pistol rod. We want to put a loop on the end that is appropriate size for 9mm. Anything in the 0.3 size range will work as long as it goes in there with plenty of room to spare. So first we just want to put a patch through the loop like that. Then we want to get our solvent and get that patch pretty soaked with solvent here. So our goal right now is just to get a bunch of solvent inside the barrel. So just push that patch through the barrel nice and slow, and then pull it back through. And now we have a bunch of solvent on the inside of the barrel, and that's going to start loosening up all of our crud. Now I typically just let the barrel sit for a few minutes and let that solvent do its work. Next we want to take the loop off and put our brush on. All right, and after the solvent's been sitting there for a few minutes, we want to take the barrel and we just want to run the brush through back and forth a couple of times. And that's going to further loosen up all the crud. Put your loop back on, and now after brushing it, we're just going to start pushing some patches through with solvent on them, and then just push it back and forth through. You see how much crud the brush loosened up, and look at all the dirt that is now getting on the patch. We just want to keep putting patches through that have solvent on them until they come out relatively clean. Shouldn't take too much. And once the patches come out relatively clean, next we're just going to start pushing dry patches through there until they come out pretty clean and dry. Alright, and then once your patches come out clean and dry, then we're done with the inside of the barrel. Alright, now you can see how nice and clean and shiny the inside of the barrel is. A shortcut you can use to clean the inside of the barrel, if the barrel's not really dirty, is what's called a Boresnake. And a Boresnake is just this snake made of fabric here, and it's got built-in copper brushes. So basically what you would do with a Boresnake, instead of using the rod and the brush and the loop and the patches, what you would do is get the inside of the barrel. You just want to get the inside of the barrel wet with solvent. You could use a cotton swab and just get a bunch of solvent in there to start loosening up the dirt. Let it sit for a few minutes, and then you would just take the Boresnake, drop it through the barrel, and pull it through, and these brushes are going to do the scouring. And then all this material will act like all those wet and dry patches that we put through to clean the rest of the barrel. And typically I would run that through 2 or 3 times, and then that's all that you really need to do to clean the barrel. It's a really great shortcut. If you're going to go to the range and shoot 50 or 100 or even a couple hundred rounds, this is all you really need to do, and your barrel is going to be nice and shiny inside when you're done. Alright, so that saves a lot of time. I'll put links in the description if you want to check those out. Alright, now that the inside of the barrel is clean, we're just going to take some cotton swabs and we're going to clean the outside of the barrel. Just clean up all the surfaces out here. Just like to get some solvent around the outside of the barrel everywhere to start cleaning up the dirt. And just make sure we get all the nooks and crannies in here, especially where this locking pin kind of goes. Just make sure you get that nice and clean. If it doesn't move freely, you might want to pound this pin out just to clean out that area, but it's moving pretty nice and free, so I'm not going to worry about that here. Make sure we get around the crown, which is the end of the barrel right here. Alright, and once everything's got solvent on it, you can just get one of your rags and just kind of start wiping it off. And anywhere you can't get to with the rag, you just get a dry cotton swab to get all the tight little spots in there. You're not going to get 100% of the crud off a gun barrel unless you spend all day doing it, but you just want to get it pretty good. One last wipe down with a rag, and we are pretty much done with this barrel. And just make sure this pin moves back and forth freely. Now we'll move on to the locking block. Real simple, we're just going to do the same thing. Coat it with solvent and then wipe it down with cotton rag. Alright, and once you're done, it should be pretty clean. Alright, now we're done with the barrel. Let's move on to the slide. So the slide on this particular gun is fairly simple. It doesn't have a lot of little parts in it like some of the newer guns do, but basically we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get some swabs, we're going to get a bunch of solvent in here, and then we're going to wipe it out. Just get your cotton swabs and just start putting solvent down in there and getting it nice and cleaned up. Get the solvent in all the areas here, especially in these grooves inside each end. These are called the slide cuts. That's where the slide moves back and forth on the frame of the gun. So it's very important that these slots are nice and clean. And just keep using fresh cotton swabs until you get it pretty cleaned up. Another method you could use if you've got a big area to cover is get your gun brush, dip it in the solvent, and then you can use the brush to go back and forth inside the gun. That works pretty well too. It might splatter a little bit because the bristles, you can kind of see it splatters a little bit, so just be prepared for that. Make sure you have a nice clean area to work. Another important area to get is right here, which is called the breech face. That's where the firing pin comes through. So this area is very important to get clean. All right, if you look closely, this is called the breech face right here. And this is where the firing pin comes out of this hole right here. And this is your extractor. And this is what pulls your spent brass out of the gun when you fire. It's very important there's no crud underneath that hook. So this is what it looks like when you have your spent brass in there. The extractor clips into the rim of the brass, and that's what pulls your spent cartridge out of the chamber after it's fired. All right, so you just want to make sure this is all nice and clean. Clean right down in this breech face, get underneath the extractor right there. All right, and when you get your brush real dirty, just stick it in the solvent, let it sit for a few seconds, and then just clean it on your paper towel like that. And that cleans up your brush pretty well. All right, and don't forget this area here on the slide, and this area in here. Don't forget this little area in here. Got a pretty good amount of hidden dirt in there, so make sure you get that place clean pretty good. All right, another shortcut I'm going to show you to really speed up cleaning the slide, especially if it's real dirty and you just don't want to spend a ton of time with the cotton swabs and everything. Get yourself something like Foul Out. This is a Gunk blaster. This is an aerosol cleaner that you can spray in here, and it's going to just flush everything out real quick. You want to hold it over a trash can. Probably do it outside is best. It's a kind of a harsh chemical, but you want to just be careful. You don't want to directly spray, and you want to try and protect any place where there's paint on your gun, especially your sights. It might ruin that paint there. You want to prevent that from happening. So you just want to be real careful when you do that. All right, now before you use something like this, make sure you read the label and make sure you test it on an inconspicuous part of the gun with a very small amount to make sure it's not going to damage your gun. And I would not recommend using it on any kind of a plastic or polymer gun. I would just stick to any metal parts. So I'll just show you that right here. I'm just going to hold it over a trash can, and I'm just going to carefully spray it in here and just let it drip into the trash can. And the beauty of this is it evaporates completely, so you don't have to worry about that too much. And then once it starts to dry, just wipe down the slide with your cotton swabs, and it really does clean up really well with this stuff. Alright, and that does a real good job getting in the really tight spaces and getting out all that crud. And that does save a whole lot of time as well. Alright, and after you get your slide pretty clean with the solvent, just go in with the cotton rags and wipe everything down real good to get it completely cleaned up. Get all the solvent and the dirt out of there this way. One thing that helps get down in there is to get the rag, just lay it over here and then get the brush and use the brush to push the rag down into the various slots and crevices in the gun. And any places you can't get with the cloth, just get your cotton swabs down in there and get all the remaining dirt and solvent out of there. Don't forget this area in the back here. Alright, and once you get the slide completely cleaned up, alright, and once you get inside the slide pretty clean with your solvent and your swabs, now we want to get a little bit of clean in this area here. So there's some serrations here, there's a little bit of crud down inside. I think probably the best way is to use a brush with a little bit of solvent on it and just kind of brush in those little serrations there. And then what you can do is get a rag on there and then use the brush to kind of push the rag into the serrations to get that solvent out. And then kind of brush that. Get in there with a Q-tip. Alright, it's looking better. It looks like we got the slide pretty clean. Got just about everything cleaned up here. Just a few final touches with the cotton swab here. Alright, now that we got the slide pretty good, we're going to set that aside, and now we're basically going to do the same thing on the frame. We're going to get some solvent down in here where the slide goes on. We're going to clean these grooves here, and down inside this area here we're going to clean up pretty good, and then we'll give the outside a quick once over. Alright, so once again with the solvent, we're just going to start with these rails here where the slide moves back and forth. Real critical area here. Just want to get a bunch of solvent on here and let it start doing its job. Get a little solvent in all these areas up in the top here. Down the side a little bit, anywhere where you can see buildup. As you can see, this gun is pretty dirty, so it's going to take a little bit of time. If your gun isn't so dirty, it won't take nearly this amount of time, but I'm just gonna keep cleaning this with cotton swabs until I got it pretty clean here. I'm just going to go down into the grip area here real quick and try and get some of that crud out of there. Just clean that up a little bit. Alright, and then use the dry end, kind of get that out of there, get it kind of dry, and then get one of your rags and just get in there with the rag. You can use your brush to get in there and clean the inside, clean the solvent off. That was a good amount of dirt inside there, and I think we're looking pretty good here. Another nice thing about this particular gun is you can take the grip off and really clean underneath the grip. So we're just going to do that real quick just to show you. And you don't have to do this every time. I'm just showing you different areas of the gun that you can get to clean up extra good if you really want to. a couple of very short screws there, and then the grip comes off. And then the grip comes off just like this, and you can just wipe it. There's some, as you can see, there's some lubrication oil that's kind of trapped in there, so it's not a bad idea to do this once in a while to just get it nice and clean. You could even take this to the sink and get some dishwashing detergent, something very mild, on here with a brush and clean it up real good. This one is not too bad. And then on the frame itself, depending on how dirty it is, you can either just wipe it down or get some solvent in there. This doesn't look like it really needs solvent. Just gonna wipe it down, make it look nice, and then we'll put the grip back on. And while you're here, you can just wipe down any other parts of the frame that need to be cleaned. Get in there with a cotton swab as usual. Any place that you can't reach. Gonna be a little bit of crud down in there. I'm gonna use some of this Gunk blaster and get in these areas real good and down in here to get all the kind of the cruddy buildup that's in there that I can see. That's not gonna be easy to get out completely with a cotton swab. All right, let's get in here and get some of this crud out of here. This is really going to do a good job getting in there. And then we're going to let that drip for a minute or two, and then we're going to just wipe everything down. Alright, get any of that excess spray off of here. Definitely wear gloves on both hands. It's just easier for me to control the camera, so I apologize for not setting the right example here, but please use gloves when you're using this solvent. Get in here with the cotton swabs. Alright, then you can just use your brush again to get in any of the really tight spaces that you really can't get to any other way. Then just do a final wipe down of everything you can get to. Anywhere where that solvent got, you want to wipe it down a little bit. And again, you don't have to get your gun as clean as I'm getting it. This is a cleaning video, so I figured we really want to go in there pretty good and get things pretty detailed. The goal is to just get most of the buildup off of your gun that way. Now we're just going to put the grip back on. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the frame. We got this pretty good down inside. Did a real nice job here. Next we have the recoil spring and the guide rod. These parts don't typically get too dirty. If they're not too bad, you can just wipe them down with a dry rag. Get any little bit of crud buildup off of here, not too bad. Spring, the same thing. You can just kind of work the spring through a dry rag. And if you want to get the inside of the spring, you can just get a cotton swab and just kind of run it down in there. It picks up a little bit. All right, as far as the magazine goes, basically, we're just going to wipe it down in this video. If your magazine has been dropped in the gravel or the dirt, or if you suspect there's any problem with the magazine, or if it's really dirty, you're going to want to take it apart and clean the insides. And I have a video I'll link to up in the corner here to show you how to do that. It's pretty simple, but for today's purposes, we're just going to wipe it down. You want to clean the follower up here pretty good and just make sure there's no buildup underneath these bent pieces, which are called the feed lips. This is where the rounds are held in place. This is where it gets typically the dirtiest, right about here. Hold the follower down a little bit, get in here with a cotton swab and just kind of clean it up a little bit. Alright, and that's about it for the magazine. Alright, now that we have all the pieces clean, we're going to move on to lubrication. So first of all, the magazine does not need to be lubricated. As a matter of fact, you don't even want to get any lubrication inside the magazine, as it could cause a problem if it gets into the ammo. Let's start with the barrel. So the manual for the PT-92 or 99 basically just says that all the metal pieces need to be lightly coated with oil. So you don't want to go crazy. There's a couple of ways you can do this. I like to use original gun oil. This is what I've been using for a while. This is a CLP, a cleaner lubricant and protectant, but it's also not super thick, so it will spread out a good bit and cover a good bit of the surfaces you put it on. So you can use something like this, put a couple drops on a rag. I'm just going to lightly rub it over all the surfaces of the parts. And this is basically just going to help with corrosion resistance, just to get a little residue of oil on here. Now on the barrel, on this particular barrel, you've got these slots here that slide back and forth. So you definitely want to make sure you get those, you get these little rails wet with a little bit of oil. That's going to help with your lubrication. So make sure you get a little oil in there a little bit. And you definitely don't want to over oil, but you do want to have a little coating of oil everywhere. And one other thing you can do is the inside of the barrel. Get a cotton swab with a little bit of oil on it. And you just want a light coating inside the barrel as well. And again, that's more for corrosion resistance than anything else. Alright, so that's the barrel. Do the same with the locking lug or the locking block. a little oil on the rag and just try and hit all the surfaces as best you can. All right, guide rod, same thing. Just a real quick coating. Wouldn't really worry about the spring, but if you wanted, just again, it's just so little that we're just going to put it on here just to kind of keep everything from corroding. In the slide, we're going to kind of do the same thing. There's a few extra places in the slide I'm going to get, but I'm just going to start doing a real quick wipe down here. Again, this oil will travel a little bit. It'll spread out a little bit from where you're putting it on there. Now what I would do in here, the little slots, these are called the slide cuts that run up and down each side inside the slide. These go back and forth on the frame rails. So I would put one little drop, I would put one drop or even a half a drop in each of those slide cuts. Use the brush to just kind of run it the whole length of the slide cut. Okay, simple as that. Not too much, just one drop. All right, and that's going to be good for the slide. All right, the frame. So we're going to kind of do the same things. These are the rails that the slide moves back and forth on. So first, just want to do just kind of a quick wipe down here for corrosion resistance. Just wiping it down a little bit here. Make sure you get enough on there that you can see that you got it on there, but that's about all. We don't want any drops or drips of it in here. All right, and then I would put, again, one little tiny half a drop on each one of these rails. Just kind of like that, like one little drop on each rail. Too much oil and you're going to kind of attract dirt, so we don't want that. And just spread it around a bit, just about like that. Another place that I'm usually going to put just one drop, kind of put a drop on a Q-tip, and I'm just going to kind of set it down in here. Get a little oil in there, that'll work its way into the inner workings there, and a little bit around some of these other parts. All right, and that's about all you really need, is just a little bit of oil in there. Now we're going to reassemble the Taurus PT99 or 92. So first thing we want to do is take the barrel and get the locking block reinstalled. So you just want to take this pin, pull it out this way, and just hold that so it doesn't go back in. And then this piece, you want this end to go in first. So you want to go in, this is an exaggerated angle, but you want to kind of go this way. So kind of get it, just kind of get lined up like that, and then bring it in, and it'll end up sitting just like that. All right, and then now we just want to lay this into the slide. Just lay it into the slide kind of like that. All right, and if that locking block doesn't fall down, you can just kind of pull this pin out to let it fall down. If you push the pin, that lifts up. We kind of want it sitting down like that. Now get your recoil guide rod and just push it into your spring. It doesn't matter which end of the spring, it's the same on either end. And then put the one end down in the front of the slide, and then carefully compress it. Make sure you have your eye protection on in case it gets loose, and slide it right down in there, right in the middle of the slide like that, and make sure it's nice and parallel to the slide. All right, and now we're just going to get the frame. All right, and then line up this slide with the rails just like this, and carefully slide it on there, and then slide it all the way back. Use the slide catch to lock the slide to the rear like so, and then rotate your takedown lever just like that, and now you can release the slide and you are reassembled. Next thing, I would try the slide, make sure it feels right, and then next thing you're going to want to do is a function and safety check. I'll link a video up here in the corner once that video is completed so that you can run through a bunch of basic tests to make sure that your firearm is working properly. All right, and now as you can see, there's some fingerprints on the gun, so we're just going to do a final wipe down here, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to put another tiny little drop on a rag and use that to kind of wipe down the exterior, and that's going to help even more with corrosion resistance. That is it for your cleaning of the Taurus PT99 and 92 pistol. If you found this video helpful, please hit like below. Please check out the description for all the products and items that we used in the video today if you want to pick any of those up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.